Well, I hope that you have enjoyed the beginning of our story, The Little Prince. It is one of my very favorite books, so I'm excited to share it with you. So here's our example picture. Here we see a pretty easy drawing. It's not very complicated. Probably won't take us very long. We see the little prince standing up here on a cliff in the desert. Not too many complicated things happening here. We'll take a little bit of time with this cliff to make sure we get some interesting texture there. Aside from that, we'll just do what we always do, piece by piece together. I'll take that away, get my clean white sheet of paper. Hope you've got yours. Now in this picture, we're going to start out by drawing the cliff with our brown crayon. I'll go about a third of the way up the paper. Do you know about thirds? The paper is cut into, if it was cut into 3 pieces. So we've got like a middle section, a bottom, 1, 2, 3, and a top. So we'll start out by making this cliff take up about this bottom third. I'll draw a very light line. Don't go too hard. We're not going to draw all the way across. Most of the way. And then I can take it down. I'm going to do a nice curved line for that. Not straight, just a nice curved line. Just to add a little bit of depth, to make it look a little more three-dimensional, 3D, we're going to start in this corner, and I'm going to add a wavy line. A few curves, not too many, maybe 2 or 3 little curves like that. Now we're going to use these curves to show us where to color more darkly and where to color more light. So before we get to our prince, let's start by doing that. When the curves go up, I'm going to imagine that that's where there's shadow. That's where there's a curve in the cliff, in the side of the cliff. So we can see that it's going to be a little darker there. So I'm going to use dark lines here. I'll stop where it gets to the other curve. I've got another up curve there, so I'm going to do the same thing. Add some more dark lines here. And make sure it goes all the way down to the bottom. Okay. Now that doesn't look exactly right? Not too realistic. So now that we've got our nice dark lines, we'll add some lighter lines. Cliffs don't usually look that stripy, huh? We can get some dark lines in if you get some in there, that's okay. But we want it to be mostly light in this area. We're thinking about where there's shadow and where there's parts that are sticking out so the light is catching it. Our lighter parts are where there's light catching it. The darker parts are where there's shadow. I'm making sure my crayon is going up and down, not side to side. And I'm making sure that I covered in all the white spaces. Light brown is fine, but I don't really want any white in my cliff. Now that that's done, I can firm up this line a little bit. Make that edge look nice and crisp. If you look at the edge of the table you're sitting at, or most edges, your table might not actually be, most edges are nice and crisp. Look around, see if you can find something like a piece of furniture with a nice corner, a door or a window, something that has a nice crisp edge. That's what we want this to look like. Kind of like it's a sharp cliff. Okay, before we color in that top part, we're not going to do anything else with our cliff. We're going to go ahead and start our little prince. I'm going to start with orange for his head. He's going to be standing pretty close to the edge, probably above that first curve on mine. So I'll put his head right above that there. Starting light, like we always do. I can always darken later. I'll give him a neck too. Now, eventually there's going to be a scarf over that neck, but we'll just draw his neck for now. Now our little prince is wearing a kind of a jumpsuit or jumper. I don't know, it's a suit that's all one color. So we're going to start like we always do by doing just the top half of his body. We'll do a nice little rectangle for the top half of his body. A square, a short rectangle, either one. Color that in very lightly. All right, we are going to use green for his pants, but before we do that, we're going to add yellow for his belt. So I'll trace that line there in yellow, bring the sides down a little bit, and then go straight across to finish off that shape. Nice rectangular, thick belt. Now we can go back to our green to finish off his pants. Bring the sides down. He's wearing pretty wide-legged trousers. Oh, mine got real close to the edge. That's okay. Even my drawing sometimes doesn't look like the example drawing, does it? He's got, like I was saying, nice wide legs on his pants. So they're not tight. They're very loose-fitting, comfortable. You can draw a line there to show that's the end of the belt, and we'll just color in his pants. Okay. Now that I've got the pants, now that I know where the body is, most of his body, I can go ahead and darken some of those lines and then draw his arms hanging down at his sides. And there's his other arm. Oh, that one got a little longer. That's okay, I'll even that out. Yeah, there we go. Okay, just finish making these lines and feel nice and clean. Remember, I don't really want white in his clothes. Light green is okay. Dark green's okay. I don't really want any white. We want this fabric to look nice and soft. So make it nice and smooth. I don't want any sudden sharp lines. There we go. Oh, let's give him his hands. There we go. Just little balls at the end of his sleeve. And we'll also use our brown to give him shoes. We use ovals there. Mine is very close to the edge. Hopefully he's careful and doesn't fall. Hope yours is standing safely away from the edge. Kind of dangerous there on the edge of the cliff. Let's go ahead, we'll take our yellow, just like we used for his belt, and we're going to give him that scarf. We'll start just by tracing where his neck is and color that in. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make his scarf nice and long, and it's being blown by the wind. It's a windy day up there on top of the cliff. So I'll start with that top line and make kind of a wavy line like that. And then I'll add one more, following the same path, just a little below it. Oops, my crayon jumped there. There we go. Smooth that edge out. I'm going to taper it off by doing a kind of V on the edge. You see that? And I'll just color that in. There's one more thing I'm going to do with my yellow, and that is his hair. It's windy, and he's got curly hair, so I'm going to do tight little spirals, little circles. Just like I did on the marigolds in our picture last week. There we go. Now on mine, in the example picture, you can see I added a little bit of shadow using some black, very faintly. I was very careful not to use too much. I'm imagining that the sun is coming from behind him, like that. So it's catching the top of his scarf and the top of his hair, the light is. But in front of him, where the sun isn't reaching, there's going to be some shadow there. We're going to be very careful, like I said. We don't want it to look blocky, right? Or scribbly. We don't want to do too strong of lines, so we'll be very gentle. I'm going to start on that edge. I'm not going to go above the edge. I'm going to stay on the downside of the cliff. Remember we said this was the dark part of our cliff? So we'll do some black lines here. I'll add some more over here since that's our other dark spot of the cliff. I'll be very careful and do just a few spots where there's no sunlight catching him. So just show a few shadows there. Yeah, between his pant legs a little bit, under his arms. I'll do a little bit below his scarf. A little below his belt. That's pretty much it. I don't want to do too much more than that. I think one in the example picture I'm going to actually do very carefully under his scarf. You might not want to do this, but I'm going to. Just at the very bottom. Not at the top, because that's where the light's coming. But just at the bottom. There we go. There's our little prince. From here, I'm just going to finish off my cliff. Didn't want to do this before because I didn't want to color over his pants. So we'll just real quick color in with brown. And from here, just going to use blue, the side of my blue crayon. I'm going to color in the sky, not the point, the side. And color in my sky, going back and forth. And long lines. Try to do the lines as long as you can. Poor little guy standing up here all alone. I wonder if any of you have read this story before. I would be interested to know that. I'm being very careful here. I'm not going to color over the prince. I don't want to make his hair green, right? Yellow and blue turns into green. So we don't want that. I'll just finish this off. Oh, I just remembered in my example picture. There is one more thing we have to do. The blue sky doesn't go all the way down to the ground. There's a little bit of the desert down there, right? Ooh, caught that just in time. So I'm going to outline that. Nice flat line. And then I'll just color that in. And then I can darken that line to make sure it stands out. Things that are up close to us generally look darker, right? When things get far away, they turn a little bit lighter. So now I'll just finish off my sky, now that I've actually finished the desert. And there we go. We are finished.